Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity podcast, episode 248. We are joined by a very special guest today, all the way from London in England. I'll introduce you to her in a minute. What are you looking funnily, Pete, for? London in England? Sorry.
Anyway,
Okay. Well, there's probably a London in America, isn't there? I'm sure there is. New London, anyway, or something. Anyway, Pete, how are you doing?
uh, I don't know what to say now. You've put me
I've just
off
I've
with all of
baffled you.
that.
Sorry, I
With all
baffled
of
you.
that.
Okay,
Yeah.
but you're doing all right, aren't you? You've
Yes,
been
I am.
yes.
I am. I'm a bit confused now, but yeah, I'm all right. Yeah. Sunny, been out walking. We're doing a charity walk at the weekend. We've got you guys coming soon. The week after Robbie Williams plays about 3 foot from my back door, which
Excellent.
everyone's out to spend a load of money on tickets and that, and I get to sit in the back garden and listen to it for 2 nights in a row. So that'll be nice. Yeah. So it's all good.
Excellent. And then we got I messaged you I think yesterday and said we got loads coming up because we've obviously got the what have we got first of all? We've got the Giants live event at the Royal Albert Hall that we're both going to be at.
Yep.
We've got the Donald Dinny Day up in Scotland near Aberdeen that we're both going to be at.
Yep.
And then we've got the Britain's Strongest Disabled Man and Woman in Brunel University
Yep.
in September, I think. That we're both.
September, and then you're coming down for the walk, and you've
Yeah,
got Terry in the
yeah,
gym, you've got Chloe in the gym.
yeah.
Yeah, it's all good, isn't
Loads
it?
going on, loads
Yeah,
going on. But anyway,
fantastic.
anyway, we are joined now. I recently did. I've done it the last couple of years. A competition, a strongman kind of novice competition in London. I think it's called the East London Rugby Club, if I'm correct. But it's also housed a fantastic gym strength training facility called Strength Ambassadors, who run the event. And we are joined today by the owner of Strength Ambassadors, Sally Moss. How are you doing, Sally?
I'm doing really well. Thanks very much for having me. This is very exciting. Yeah, can't wait to tell people more about Strength Ambassadors.
Excellent. And I will say before we go on that actually this is really great because we often sort of say how we connect with people on social media and how we've met people from all over the world and had them on the podcast through, either people directly reaching out to us or recommendations from listeners or guests. And there's a guy on Instagram and his name is Marsh Penman. And what did I say is Discord.1971. So I would imagine that his birth year was 1971. So Marsh reached out to me a little while ago. I think he's listened to the podcast a few times. Said, "Oh, you should get Sally on from Strength Ambassadors. She'd be really good because she's introduced lots of women in kind of London and the southeast to strength training." So then like I say, I was aware of Sally anyway, but reached out and we managed to get this set up. So yeah, thank you, Marsh, for the recommendation on Instagram. So yeah, I suppose Sally, to begin with, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself? Obviously, Strength Ambassadors is a fantastic facility, really near to West Ham tube station, isn't it? It's literally just around the corner from West Ham. But yeah, obviously you didn't start there. You must have started your journey somewhere else, and how you got into coaching, training, strength, that kind of thing. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about that, and we can sort of dip in with questions as we go, if that's okay?
Definitely. Yeah, I think a lot of people are interested in my story just because I think it's still relatively unusual to have a sort of older female gym owner who's running a strength training gym, and as Strength Ambassadors, we do strongman, we do powerlifting, we do Olympic weightlifting. And yeah, there's a lot of curiosity about how somebody like me, who's just turned 50 this year, how you kind of end up doing something like that. Um, so actually my story is it's pretty similar to a lot of people, I would say, especially at the start. So I didn't grow up in a sporty household. There was no strength or lifting background at home, and so my parents were more into like culture, music and literature. And so although I did PE at school, I just like gave it up as soon as it became optional. That was it. um, and then I went to uni, then I left and got my first job. This is in the late 90s. And And that was when I joined a gym for the first time, basically for the same reason that everybody joins a gym. I was like putting on a bit of weight. I was feeling a bit unfit. I wanted to do something about it. So I kind of walked into the gym, and I loved it straight away. I did loads of classes. I was really into classes, you know, aerobics, body pump, all of that stuff. Did that for quite a few years. I'd also kind of got into breakdancing around about the same time. So it's a bit random, but yeah, loved that. So there I was, you know, enjoying things and getting fit and quite liking the lifting. And actually my favorite class was body pump, which is basically lifting weights to music. And I have since met many people, and especially women, who became interested in weights through body pump. So, you know,
I used to teach body pump.
Did you?
Back
Awesome.
in, I want to say at least 20 years ago, I was teaching body pump. And I know you, because you get the track numbers, don't you? You know, body pump and then the number, you know, like now that's what I call music 12. Now that's what I call music 13.
Yeah.
And I think I started body pump. I was about body pump 13 or something like that. So
Wow.
I don't know what number it's now, but
that's where Donna Moore started, wasn't it? She said, because I know people. We're moving on ahead here quickly, but like people often say, the stronger people who they get, or the people who get interested in weights, and all the strongest ones are the ones who've done body pump because they've just built that foundation. But anyway, sorry, carry on.
yeah.
I think it's brilliant. I think if you did a survey of you know, women who had sort of been lifting for a while, I wouldn't be surprised if most of them had sort of started with body pump. And it's great. It's the best of everything. You got, you know, good music, you're lifting weights, and you know, you're starting to, I think the other thing with body pump is if you are completely untrained, you start doing body pump, you really do see changes in your body, and you do start to build muscle and start to build strength. And that's what happened to me, and I loved it. But what happened then, so I did it for quite a few years, and I think I probably, like, you know, sort of plateaued, and I got to that stage where I couldn't put any more weight on the body pump bar. I think at the time, you know, the 20 kilos is the most you could fit on the bar. And I was getting curious about, okay, well, what's next? Because I really enjoy this, but I feel like there's something more out there. And so I was looking around online, and I kind of discovered more sort of quote unquote serious strength training online. But it wasn't on offer at the gym that I was going to at the time. So I had to look around, had to find another gym. So we're now in
was this in London? Just asking.
This is in London.
Have you always sort of lived in or around London?
Pretty much, aside from a brief foray to Cornwall for 2.5 years, I've always lived in London, and this was London. And so it's 2005. I'm 30, and I found a gym where there was like sort of proper Olympic lifting bars and squat racks and everything, which you did, you know, it was quite hard to find 20 years ago. And it was the Armory in Hampstead. And so I went along, and I had this experience, which again, a lot of people, especially women, were having at the time, which is I turned up for my induction, and there's a gym instructor there, you know, sort of young buff dude, and you know, asked me what I wanted to do, and I said, I want to use the 20 kilo Olympic bar. I was so excited about it. And the first thing he said to me is like, oh no, that's gonna be too heavy for you. No. Which, you know, bless him, like he was really worried for my safety. So, and I had to insist, that to just sort of put my foot down and insist, and eventually he sort of reluctantly said okay, and was obviously very scared that I would sort of collapse and die under this thing, and of course I was fine. But that was the attitude then, and I think I don't blame this guy, you know. I think it's just lack of exposure to training women in this way. So, you know, I started training in that gym, and quite quickly the sort of the resident powerlifting crew, you know, there was these like 3 or 4 blokes who would always be around the power rack in the corner, lifting heavy weights while everybody else was on the machines. they got very interested. They were, genuinely quite excited that here is this, young lady keen on lifting, and they really wanted to help out. So I kind of got to know them, and they sort of took me under their wing, and I learned a lot from those guys, Alex and Dave in particular, and they just introduced me to this whole world of lifting, and so that was it. Like I was away and lifting heavy.
It's just, I
And that
suppose,
was
just for context for people who might not, because 20 years ago was kind of before CrossFit was everywhere. It's before, like you say, you go into gyms. I worked in a really big gym probably 20 plus years ago, and there was a downstairs area which was like a powerlifting and bodybuilding kind of floor, if you like. And there was just, there was a couple of squat racks in there, but it wasn't like something you used to see everywhere, certainly not in commercial gyms. And CrossFit hadn't taken off, so Olympic lifting and the kind of the power lifts weren't really commonplace, were they? It was very much a machine and dumbbell kind of setup, I suppose, in most gyms 20 years ago, wasn't it?
absolutely,
Mm,
that's a really good point.
mm,
So I had to hunt around for a gym that even had sort of free weights like Olympic bars, because the gym I was in, which is a sort of typical leisure centre gym, it only had a Smith machine, didn't have a squat rack.
mm,
And yes, sports like powerlifting and Olympic weightlifting were very, very niche indeed. And it was CrossFit very much early days. I mean, people who are into CrossFit might have sort of seen, like, I think like the very first CrossFit Games was around, is it like 2007, 2009, something like that. It was very, very kind of basic. The videos from back then, there's some sort of classic videos of early CrossFit. So it was very, and I remember CrossFit being around.
mm.
um and yeah,
But I
very, very
think it
kind of
was like
basic
back then,
level.
it was like they used to post like a WOD or something online,
Yeah,
but there wasn't like CrossFit boxes everywhere,
no,
was there? There was nothing like that. It was like people would get this WOD online, and then they try and do it, I don't know, in their garage, or do what they could in a commercial gym, but there weren't like CrossFit boxes in every town like there are now, was there?
no,
Yeah,
not at
yeah,
all, not at
yeah.
all. Actually, I do have CrossFit to thank for me getting into Olympic weightlifting, actually. So powerlifting was my initial intro into strength sports, and I I didn't realize that strength sports were a thing. So I kind of got my head around, oh, you go to the gym, you lift, you get stronger. And it was when I moved to Cornwall, actually, and I joined a new gym. And the guy who ran that gym happened to be the local regional rep for one of the powerlifting federations. And right away, he kind of spotted me as a potential recruit. And he sort of came over and said, have you thought about competing? And I had not. It had never crossed my mind, didn't even know there were such things.
Mm,
So I got into the competitive side of strength sports just by accident, just because I was in the right gym at the right time. And strongman as well just kind of came out of again having a friend who was doing a strongman competition. This is while I was in Cornwall as well, and going along and watching and thinking, oh, this is interesting. They're flipping tires, they're running with cars. This is very cool. So it was very fortunate and accidental, and it was about who you knew and getting out there, really. And then nowadays people are discovering a lot online, so it's quite a different
mm,
it's a different environment, different learning process. And I was quite often in these environments the only woman. I remember my first powerlifting competition, there was two women, me and one other girl,
mm.
and then everybody else was male. And it didn't particularly bother me at the time, but it did make me think. I was like, where are all the other girls? And it was a bit like not lonely, but I kind of felt like, oh, I don't really want to be the only one, and this is brilliant, and why can't more people benefit from it? So that was where my business and strength ambassadors And my very first class, Ladies Who Lift, came out of that. So being in that world of gyms, often being the only woman in the weights room, and thinking, well, this is a real pity. This is really disappointing. And so in
So what were you doing?
2011,
What were you doing work-wise back then? Sorry, because you weren't involved in working
no,
in
I
fitness
was
or the
not.
strength industry. What were you doing
Correct.
work-wise back then?
So at that time, I had an office job. I actually worked in project management, and then I went into sort of policy development in the public sector. And I had a bit of a sort of mid-30s crisis. That's when I moved to Cornwall. Cornwall to
How
be a
come she
surf
came back
bum.
from Cornwall? But how did you, just quickly, because we had a
Yeah.
lady on last week, Vicky. What's Vicky's surname? I can't remember.
Barrington.
Vicky Farrington, who moved from London. It's quite similar. She was in the Met Police, and for 16 years, and she was in like firearms and counter-terrorism and all that stuff. And she gave up the police after 16 years, and she moved to the Lake District. And she still lives up in the Lake District. She does loads of like ultra endurance cycling, and she's got a gym up there with her partner and things like that. So you moved from London down to Cornwall. Why did you come back to London? To London?
So I came back to London because when I was in Cornwall, that's when I decided to change careers and go into the fitness industry. And honestly, at that time, which was 2007 to 2009, there were no opportunity. There was no opportunity in Cornwall. I think it's a little bit different now. I know that more people have opened gyms down there, and I mean there were gyms there before, but there wasn't really a lot of opportunity to charge a premium for coaching and that sort of thing. So I decided to come back to London in order to do that, and partly because I'm from London, I was able to start again, move back in with my mum, and literally start from the bottom. And also because I saw London as a place where there was a big market, you can charge a premium for coaching services and everything. And so
I thought you were going to say you just went to Cornwall and it took you 2.5 years to get there and back. Because in 2007 it was a bit harder.
It does feel very far away, I'm not going to lie. It's funny actually how uninterested I became in anything to do with like London or government or politics or anything. It always seemed very irrelevant when you're down in Cornwall, I have to say. But unfortunately I couldn't sort of make it work down there and for what I wanted to do. And so I don't regret coming back at all, and it's been brilliant. And so I sort of came back going, okay, I'm going to go into fitness. I'm going to sort of start again at the bottom, become a personal trainer. And I literally did. So I got a job in a Fitness First as a fitness instructor, which is basically the person who goes around cleaning the machines, picking the towels up off the floor, maybe occasionally doing an induction or teaching an 20-minute abs class. But yeah, it was pretty basic stuff.
That's exactly where I started. So I know exactly what you're talking about. Well, not Fitness First, but exactly that fitness instructor role, doing inductions, cleaning machines, end of the night, cleaning out the sauna and the steam room, all that stuff. I think it puts you in good stead for running your own facility, doesn't it? Because you're not, you're used to doing all the grind and all the things that some people, aren't used to doing. So no, I totally get where you're from. Yeah.
Definitely. And you really are like, you get to understand the workings of the gym and talking to people on the gym floor. So by this time I was quite an experienced lifter. I was quite into Olympic weightlifting by this time. So this is 2010, 2011. And I think I was able to attract attention out on the gym floor because it was quite different. Here's this woman doing like really quite serious strength training. And it's a great, if you're a personal trainer, doing your own training out on the gym floor is a great recruitment tool, and it's a good way for people to see what you can do. And so I was sort of picking up like PT clients on the side even before I was a like fully qualified PT, because people could see that I knew what I was doing. And I always knew as well that I wanted to focus on the strength side of things, because that was my passion. And so strength training was becoming more popular. It still was nowhere near as big as it is now, and still nowhere near as big as the kind of fat loss, weight loss side of things. But I believed that for some reason that things were only going in one direction. And I don't know if it was because that was my own personal experience, and I just assumed everybody else would also think the same way. So it could be a bit misguided. But I thought there were going to be enough people interested in learning how to lift to make it possible to run a successful business. But I didn't really know, and so I kind of tested the market in 2011, where I started a class called Ladies Who Lift. So a women-only strength training class. It was in a different gym, not the one I was working in. And I used to run it started out as a course, a 6-week course, became a class later on. But yeah, I used to run that, and lo and behold, there were people interested in learning how to lift and wanting to be in an environment that was more conducive and more friendly and coaching led and with other women. You know, because it's just it's kind of a lonely place going into the weight room if you're, it's not even about female, it's about if you're just different from everybody else who's in there. It might be because you're female, it might be because you have a different type of physique, it might be that you're older or you're younger, or you just, you know, feel less comfortable around,
Or if you just
in
don't
that
know what
kind of
you,
atmosphere.
if you don't know what you're doing, isn't it? You know, if you walk into these places, you kind of, and you, especially if you see, you know, lots of people who look very competent and look very experienced, and you walk in there for the first time, you could be anyone. But if you don't know, you know, you're like that fish out of water, aren't you? You walk in, you don't feel confident, do you? No one would, you know.
What I love about what you said earlier was, and this would put most personal trainers out of business, because you just walked into somewhere and then you saw the guys lifting and everything, and you ended up kind of talking to them, and then you realize people just want to help, or most people do, not everybody. And if you know, if you could take away that kind of the intimidation of it, and people could just walk in and go up and say, look, excuse me, I've seen that you're good at this, can you help me out? And then it would put personal trainers out of business, wouldn't it? Because all these like helpful people would be like, yeah, I've been lifting for years, I'll help you out. You know what I mean? So I like that side of it. I think that's starting to become, I mean, you do get the stuff on social media with people taking videos of people doing weird things and all that, but Joey Swole's all over that, isn't he? So that's cool. But it's like, I love that message of, you know, I just walked up and I got help. And then if you can do that, anybody can, can't they? But it's obviously, it's not as simple as that for most people.
I definitely would encourage people to not be scared of, you know, the classic, the big bloke in the corner, you know, lifting big weights. You know, that person probably loves strength training, knows a lot about it, and it would be overjoyed to, you know, share their knowledge. But because they look intimidating, and you know, it does put people off from starting those interactions. But for me, it's always been quite positive. And also, I think that there's a bit of an issue, I think, sometimes with getting unsolicited advice in the gym. That we're not really talking about that. We're kind of talking about the other way, where somebody isn't interfering in your workout, but looks like they really know what they're doing, and probably would be quite happy to be, and flattered to be asked.
I was about to say that it must be very flattering for someone who's just like doing it like I suppose they'll think they're doing it recreationally, but they probably know more than more than most people. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And although I think obviously as a personal trainer, I would say that I don't think it would put personal trainers out of business in the sense that there's a difference between um, educating yourself and managing your own training and being really good at strength training for yourself, and being able to coach somebody else who's very different from you physically, and get results for them, and that takes a knowledge, b experience, and then exposure to a lot of different people. So there's definitely a skill there that personal trainers can develop that your mate who's a great lifter doesn't have. So they can definitely set you on the path, give you some useful information, but they can't always coach you in the best way. So there's still room there, I think, for professional coaches to guide you in the right way. Of course, I would say that because I'm a professional coach. That's what we do.
Yeah, no, all three of us are. It's no, I think no, you're right. And I think the thing is that where someone who, I mean, we've all probably seen it, the person who looks like they've got a great physique, they're on Instagram with the top off all the time, and they train themselves, but they've never actually trained anyone else before, and all they've got really is their experience. So if they were then to meet someone 20 years older than them, totally different life experience, maybe with some injuries or some, it's like, well, got no knowledge at all in terms of helping that person. Yeah. So how did your ladies that lift class or course that then became a class, what was the next stage on from that? So that was obviously you realized you kind of almost dipped your toe in the water and found that, this is almost like a proof of concept. There are people out there who'll pay for this, and I can give really good value, and they love it. What was the next stage after that?
So Ladies Who Lift started in 2011, and that was alongside me becoming a PT. And I spent a couple of years working in someone else's business. So I worked for Ultimate Performance, which is a massive personal training company now with gyms all over the world. But when I worked there, they had their original gym in the city, and they were about to open their second gym in Mayfair. And that place
that's Nick. What's his name? Nick
Mitchell.
Nick Mitchell. That's it. Yeah.
Nick Mitchell. Yeah. Very successful. Definitely more on the body transformation side. But one of the reasons why he hired me is because I knew about lifting, and he wanted more female coaches who really understood lifting, and there weren't very many around. So I spent a couple of years working there, learned a lot, and that was a decision, because I was trying to decide, should I, go freelance independent, or should I work for someone else? And I learned a lot about the fitness business and the gym business from Nick and his setup there, and he's extraordinarily successful. And then after a couple of years, I'd kind of had enough of 12-week transformations, and it's not really my thing. So I left and became independent from there. All of that time, Ladies Who Lift was still going as a class, and actually Nick was very supportive of me doing this on my own. And I actually used Ultimate Performance as a venue for doing that. And I continued to do classes like Ladies Who Lift. I started offering Olympic weightlifting, but I would do it in other people's gyms. So I had this model where, I kind of rent some space in a gym, or rent half the gym or the whole gym to run my classes. And so I was building this, sort of virtual community. And it seemed like the logical next step would be to have my own facility. But I didn't have a lot of money. And so I kind of thought it was out of reach. And then an opportunity arose in 2019 So here I was, I'd been doing classes for years and years and years. Opportunity arose in 2019 to take over a gym that I was using, I was kind of renting space in at the time. And that's this facility in West Ham. And so once again, it was about being in the right place at the right time and, sort of grasping the opportunity when it arose. And so, yeah, I took over. It was already a gym. The person who was running it at the time didn't want to do it anymore. And so I stepped in and took it over, and I've now had that place for 6 years. So basically I already had a community. I had lots of members, and I just sort of moved them all into this gym in West Ham.
And how far away was that? So the gym where you're at now, which is Strength Ambassadors, which we'll talk about in a minute, like how you came up with that name and, and the ethos behind it and what you do there. But how far was that away? I mean, because I know London, obviously it's a huge place and there's gyms all over the place, and people don't necessarily travel very far usually to go somewhere because they've got somewhere very local to them. But everyone that you were training in these different classes in different facilities, did most of them come to when you acquired the gym, most of them just transferred and came there, did they?
By the time that I acquired that gym, I was doing most of my classes in that space anyway.
Okay.
So it made the transition easier. And with the other folks, they either traveled all the way to West Ham, some of them from quite far away, or they went elsewhere because it was a bit too far. But a lot of people did travel. I mean, what we do was at the time quite specialist, and still is, even though there are more people doing it. And people do travel quite a way to come to us, even if it's only once or twice a week. There's not that many gyms in London doing what we do for reasons that we can go into, but yeah, most people did come and stay with us.
So you acquired this gym space, and it was fully kitted out. It was where you were doing your classes anyway. So it was just a case of, one day you're renting space there, the next day you're kind of running it, as it were.
Much. I mean, there was lots of things that I wanted to do with the space, and I made lots of changes. So I was kind of itching to get my hands on it. But in terms of it functioning as a gym, yes, it was literally, one day I was responsible for it, and I instantly set to work making the changes that I wanted to make. And there've been quite a few over the years. I put new flooring in. I built a whole extra mezzanine floor that was not there before. So yeah, it looks very different now from when it did when I took it over in 2019.
And where did the name Strength Ambassadors come from? Were you using that name already, or was that something that you created when you acquired the space?
Strength Ambassadors has been the name of my business since I started it. So I incorporated in 2012. And I always knew, even when I was a PT, I always knew that I wanted to have a bigger company, a bigger organization that wasn't just me. So I never wanted to be Sally Moss PT. And the name actually came from a friend of mine, an American coach called Chip Conrad.
Oh yeah.
Do you know Chip? Do you know about Chip? Yeah, for Body Tribe. So he I think he referred to me once as an ambassador of strength or something. That's a very sort of Chip type phrase. And I thought it was great. I was like, oh, I'm going to use that, because it really aligned with the values that I had at the time, which was, being an ambassador for people who, had been excluded, let's say, from the weight room or from strength training, or directed, like that experience that I had when I came to the gym saying, I want to lift weights. And I was told, no, it's not for you. And, kind of pissed me off at the time, if I'm honest. And it was annoying to be told, no, that's not for you. And it was annoying to not have more role models and people showing me the way. And the people who've helped me along the way have been brilliant. But for a long time, there wasn't anybody like me. And so that idea of being an ambassador, and for me to then my community have also been ambassadors for their friends and their networks. So having that like ripple effect was important, and that's why it's reflected in the name.
Mm. And now you've got obviously strength ambassadors, and you, like you say, it's powerlifting, Olympic lifting, strongman training, and you've got a number of coaches who work with you there. Olympic lifting coaches and powerlifting coaches and whatnot. And I think, but from looking on the website, you've got a number of female coaches as well, haven't you? So probably, I don't know if the majority of the coaches are female, but certainly on the website there's lots of female strength coaches now working with you. Was that, I mean, your clientele now, what's the kind of split? Is it mainly female with some male? What's the kind of proportional sort of split of members that you have?
I'm not sure what it is in percentage terms. We're definitely majority female in terms of our membership, and majority female in terms of our coaching team. We have male members, we have male coaches as well. A lot of people do really strongly associate me with training women, and some people think that my gym is women only, but it's not, never has been. There's one women only class, which is Ladies Who Lift, and all of the other classes are mixed, because I'm not trying to exclude men at all. It's just this. But what I found over the years is that having female coaches, being female led, is a big draw, not only for women, but also for men who are a bit put off by overly macho gyms, and they make the assumption that a gym run by a woman is not going to be like that. And it is an assumption, but I would say in most cases that's correct. And other female-led strength gyms that I know of, probably we're just a little bit more sensitive to the fact that not everybody's a certain type of person, and the approach is no disrespect to men, but maybe the approach is a bit more sort of nurturing and maybe slightly less kind of overtly competitive. There's just there's a kind of vibe, and so some people are looking for that vibe. And actually, this is something. So when I was working for Nick Mitchell at Ultimate Performance, he had a similar view, which is that it is almost like a negative, which is that he said that people expect different things from a female coach, and from women in general. They expect you to be nice, they expect you to be more smiley, they expect you to be more gentle than male big buff people. And it does a slight disservice to big buff males, some of whom are lovely and very sweet, and also to women. But it's kind of like, I've been in this business a long time, and I'd say it's kind of true. And I have found that that being a female-led business, people assume that you're a bit more welcoming, you're a bit more gentle, and a lot of people are looking for that. So it's not a bad thing. It's actually a really unique selling point. And maybe more female coaches should lean into that a bit more. And there's plenty of men who appreciate a female coach's approach. You don't have to be women only if you don't want to be.
No, I totally get that and totally agree. We have some men at our gym who like to be trained by by women, coaches or female coaches, and it's not, like you say, it's not so much about male and female, it's more about personality types, isn't it? I suppose, and some people just gel with other people that are different, and or that people gel with different people, don't they? And you know, I do think that and like you say, all stereotypes are stereotypes for a reason, because they're usually rooted in truth, aren't they? You know, it's on some level. But I do think that the overly kind of macho, kind of muscle bound, aggressive kind of drill sergeant trainer does seem to be, well, from what I see anyway, more a thing of the past now. Well, there's less of it around now, I think. And that's probably partially due to more females being in the industry, and also just the way that you need to, because you've probably seen, obviously, in your time, that you get a lot of people who come out from the military, and we've spoke to people on the podcast, haven't we, Pete, who come out from the military and then go into training, you know, the general public, and try and transition from the way they've been training people in the military to training the general public like that, which is basically shouting and abusing and, you know, just kind of taking the same. And we've spoke to people who quite openly said, first time I started training the public, and I just did it exactly the same as when I was in the military, and very quickly you realize that doesn't work, you know, because people don't have to be there, they have to pay, you know, they need to pay you money and so on. So no, it's really interesting. And I do, just from a personal thing, I've been to Strength Ambassadors twice, you know, over the last couple of years, and I think it is an incredibly, the competitions that you've ran there that I've been at are really friendly, really relaxed, really like welcoming, and you know, you just feel everyone's lovely, you know, all the people who kind of work with you. I had Steph is a coach at yours, isn't she? Is it Steph Gooch?
Yeah, she used to be. She's
Oh,
not
Tuesday.
coaching anymore, just
Oh,
because,
okay.
you know, she's just too busy now. She's
Yeah.
kind of, she's doing very well in her career and shit. But she used to be a coach for you know, a few years. And
Yeah, because she was at the comp obviously last weekend, and then she came down to mine last weekend to use some of the
yes,
bits. And I said,
yeah.
oh, I've got Sally on the podcast on Thursday, and she goes, oh, my Sally. I said, yeah, you're Sally. You know, so yeah, so she was lovely. You know, she. So yeah, I think the industry is. I think what you're doing is absolutely fantastic. So, but one thing I want to touch on that you mentioned and you kind of glossed over, but said we might come back to it, was why there aren't more gyms in London doing what you do, because you said you feel there is a demand for it, but not many people, not many places are doing it, and you said you might come back to tell us why that is. So yeah, I'm intrigued by that.
So just to explain what we do, or what I mean when I say
Mm,
what we do,
mm,
we've obviously established that we do strength training at the gym. Basically, we offer mostly classes, so we're very coaching led. So it's not just a gym where you sort of turn up and do your own thing. Most members are people who come to our classes regularly, and even the people who do open gym are normally people who used to do our classes, and you know, so they've already had a lot of coaching from us.
mm,
And we do coach, a lot of classes are based around the strength sports, but also strength training in general. And what we don't do is we do not do any kind of like weight loss, fat loss, fitness, circuit training. We absolutely don't put people on a scale, unless we have a competition and there's a, you know,
category.
take
Yeah.
their body weight for the
Yeah.
competition, but with
Yeah.
that, it's never made public. And which is, you know, this is, I'm going to be honest, this is the bread and butter of the fitness industry, is fat loss and weight loss.
Mm,
And when we don't do that, to the extent that I don't even offer nutritional advice for people, even around performance, I
mm,
do not want to go there, because I consider that to be a slippery slope into getting too involved in people's diets. And so if anybody does want performance nutrition, I will refer them out.
mm,
So Steph, for example, she works with a nutritionist, and you know, Shannon Smith, and they do all that, and it doesn't come into Strength Ambassadors at all.
mm,
And so the strength training is becoming popular now, but it's, strength training is sometimes the phrase people use when really what they mean is weight loss or building your glutes in a sort of bodybuilding where sometimes it's actually another name for bodybuilding, which is not what we do at all. We absolutely don't care what people look like or, you know, which body part they want to look better. It's just about what people can do, and that is 100% what we do.
So it's for the love of
It's
lifting,
a
isn't it? And
choice.
it's for, like you say, it's for the love of lifting, and it's strength sports, isn't it? So it's yeah.
But it's for health as well. It's for sort of strength and health, and it's what's happening as well out there is that people are becoming more and more aware of the importance of strength training for health, for longevity, for functionality. And I do hear from people who've been told by their doctor or by their physio, you know, you should be doing strength training. And so the message is getting out there, and it's not just for getting in shape aesthetically. But there's still a lot. I feel like there's a lot of gyms. So not, you know, not your gym. And there's loads of gyms out there that haven't quite caught up with this, and they'll do things that are called strength training, but actually it's kind of like it's sort of fitness, but with some weights, or it's fat loss, but with weights. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just not, the strength isn't actually the main goal in what they're doing. It's a bit like body pump, you know, it's not, strength wasn't actually the goal. It was about,
I was just going to
getting in
mention
shape.
that because, but without body pump, you wouldn't have gone on to potentially. We don't know really what would have happened, but body pump was the you know, the feeder for you into like we said with Donna Moore, who we had on as well. So strength body pump was the avenue that got you into the more serious strength training, wasn't it?
So and CrossFit has been the same for Olympic weightlifting, and most people join a gym to lose weight still. Like, but things have moved on since then, and since Donna was doing body pump, since I was doing body pump, you know, when we were back then, when we were doing body pump, nobody was talking about women doing strength training for their health. I mean, nobody was talking about women doing strength training at all for any reason. And this has been the big change over the last 20 years, which is that the message is getting out there that strength training is not just for bodybuilders. It's actually really important for living a long, healthy, active life. There's a load of stuff there around strength training for perimenopause and postmenopause, and so the advice and the message out there is very, very different. And so there's no need for people to, you know, come in via body pump. They can go straight for the straight for the lifting. And some people are, you know, searching online, and they're finding places like strength ambassadors, but there's just not enough of us.
It's interesting because this becomes a huge topic because we've spoke about this. In fact, in the podcast I've just put out today, which is an episode from weeks ago, but we were talking about having a purpose and all this sort of stuff. So people might say, I want to strength train and come to you. And it's not all about the nutrition and weight loss and all that, but that might come a bit later on, because then once you become the person who's like, I'm a strong person now, this is what I do, you might want to look at your nutrition. You might start to look at how much you drink and how often you go out and all of these sorts of things. But if you start with that, that's kind of what would call arse about face, isn't it? But that's the way most people would look at it, is I need to sort all that out first, then I can do the strength stuff. And it's like, well, if you start, it doesn't matter where you start. If you start to do the strength stuff, that could become your purpose, or it's attached to a purpose of something that you want to be, because you want to live longer, you want to be there for your kids, whatever it is. Or you're struggling with menopause or whatever, because it's never too late to start any of these things. And then you become the type of person who's like, right now I'm going to start looking at my nutrition, because that was the thing I was going to find hardest. But actually, I can now attach it to something. So it's really interesting hearing that. Because that's where I think people think they need to build up. I mean, you get the thing, I'm too weak to start strength training. It's like, well, nobody is. You just start with, like you with the, you know, when you went in and you were ready to use the 20 kilo bar and all of that. Not everyone's going to be at that stage, are they? But you can get them there relatively, well, very safely and probably relatively quickly based on how they would think it is. So I think that's a good it's a good message that you don't need to build up to it. You can start straight away. You could come to you now with zero experience, and be like, right, teach me, show me how to be strong, please, and you'll be able to do it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Everybody has their own routine. And no, I mean, there's nothing wrong with people discovering strength training through wanting fat loss. There's nothing wrong with people wanting to lose some weight. I mean, you know, it's a good idea from a health perspective. It's just that not everybody comes in the same route, right? There's a community out there that's underserved. And the kind of people who turn up as strength ambassadors, I could tell you the vast majority of them are people who want to lift or be strong for reasons other than weight loss, and actually don't particularly want to be in an environment where weight loss or fat loss or aesthetics is part of the vibe. They really are specifically, and this could include people who have a history of eating disorders. It could include people who like know they're overweight but they're not ready to deal with it, but they want to do, you know, some training. They want to do something that's good for them. It could be people who want to do strength training for a different reason and don't want to make their gym visits. They don't want to tie these things together, you know, weight loss or nutrition or anything. But it's they want to keep it simple. They want to do this thing because they want to feel stronger or they want to be healthier, and they are kind of two different worlds. There aren't enough spaces where those things are separated and treated differently, and a lot of people can be sort of quite triggered by the idea that these two things are meshed together, and they're identifying gym with diets or diet culture, and really they're two separate things. And I think it's actually great that there's so many more independent nutritionists out there offering online services, because I think that takes it out of the gym. Because the gym's for lifting, the gym's where you do the lifting. The diet stuff is that happens at home. So let's not try and do the two things in the same place. It's almost like, you know, when you try and create boundaries with like work and hobbies, for example, it's having those boundaries, I think, for some people is really important. And seeing the gym as a safe space where there are those boundaries in place is important. But it's not for everybody. And then there's plenty of people who like to do like the whole service, the whole full package. But traditionally, personal training has been both. You know, it's been that sort of full service training, nutrition, strength, endurance, fitness, everything. And these days, not everybody wants all that. And certainly not everybody wants all that in the same place. People would prefer to think about these things in different environments. So that's why I think there's scope to be very sort of specific and niche about what you do, and you will attract people who want to do that instead of trying to be everything to everybody, which is traditionally what gyms have done, because they just want to, you know, make as much money as possible.
Yeah, they want to cast their they want to cast their net as wide as they can, don't they, I suppose, and become, like you say, everything to everyone. Sorry, Pete, go on.
I've just thought of something there, and I don't know why this popped into my head. And I don't even know if it's a thing anymore, but you know, like you'd go to the doctors or something and they'd be like, you want to get to a healthy weight. What is a healthy weight? Because it could be any weight, couldn't it? Depending on who you are and, like, you know, your kind of body, what's it called, the composition and all that sort of stuff. You know, I don't know why I haven't heard that term for ages. Maybe that's because I haven't been to doctors for ages and stuff like that. But you know, what is a healthy weight? It's a rhetorical question, but I'm just
I think you're right about your point earlier about sometimes when people think that they need to address that side of things first before entering a gym, whereas actually they can do it the other way around. That's really important, and I'm definitely a big proponent of let's develop the love of exercise or the love of a sport first, and actually enjoy yourself. And then when you are enjoying yourself and you have that habit of going to the gym, then yes, of course, let's look at performance nutrition, maybe look at changing your body weight to suit your strength sport, and use it as a motivational goal. I definitely do that personally. I will hold my hands up and say, nutrition's a big part of my personal life. I just don't, get involved in anyone else's. But yeah, it's a thing for me. I'll try and stay in a particular weight class for my lifting, or I'll try and stay a certain weight or a certain level of leanness so I can feel like I'm performing better. It is a thing. But I just, from a business perspective, I personally don't want to offer that as a service, and I don't think it's necessary for everyone to do that. And like I said, there's plenty of great nutritionists out there who will take care of all of that for you, as and when you need it.
I suppose it's the difference between seeing, I suppose what you almost is like seeing exercise as a means to an end, where the end is like looking a certain way or weighing a certain amount or whatever, and the exercise is just the process that you use to help you get there, rather than seeing exercise as the end. Exercise is, you're training for the sake of training because you enjoy training and because you want to express your body and you want to train and you want to get stronger and you want to enjoy it and you want to compete or whatever, or you just want to lift weights because it makes you feel good. So I think that's the difference, isn't it? It's kind of seeing exercise or going to the gym for what it can give you aesthetically or whatever, losing weight, or just the actual love of doing the thing, which is what you're, I suppose that's what the message that you're spreading, isn't it? And the message that you're, obviously all your members and the people you've trained over the years, that's what they see training as and strength as and things. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's really well put. And yeah, I think all of our members, they come to the gym and lift weights because they enjoy it. Definitely. And I've met people, in other gyms, you have those sort of conversations in the changing room where you could tell somebody doesn't really want to be there, but they're there because they feel like they have to, because they've got to lose a few pounds. And look, there's also nothing wrong with training for aesthetics. A lot of people are highly motivated by that and really enjoy it. And I think I would also say that these things can change as you go through life, right? So we're all not spring chickens anymore, and
you can say
maybe when we were younger, were young, free and single, then yeah, how you look is sort of looms larger in your sort of everyday concerns. And sometimes when you get a bit older, other things come to the fore, and you either experience health issues, or people close to you experience health issues, and you start to see, look, this stuff is really important. It's not just about looking sexy. We all want to look sexy, but there's other benefits here. Even if it had zero effect on your improvements, there's a lot to be gained. And maybe as you get older, you start to appreciate these things a little bit more, just because of like life just happens, right? And
speaking about being sexy, confidence is sexy, basically. So, and lifting weights gives you confidence. So it doesn't matter what you look like, because it's how you'll carry yourself. So there you go.
That's brilliant. Yeah, massive endorsement. I mean, yeah, I think this is a big thing for the people that come to my gym as well. A lot of people cite confidence as, and I would say actually this is particularly the sort of women and females coming to the gym. A lot of people cite confidence as a key reason for wanting to learn to lift, and that's really important. So yeah, I mean, there's room for lots of different types of businesses in the fitness industry, and it has always surprised me that there aren't more places consistently focusing on strength training for its own sake. And there are places, I've seen other gyms where a particular trainer who works there has been really keen on this and has started something, and then that trainer has left, and then it just kind of dies a death because there's no one there to carry it on, and that happens quite a lot.
No, this has been really great. It's been, yeah, really interesting, because I think we kind of have gone a bit deeper than I thought we would, but I love it. It's really, you know, about that kind of the motivation behind training, and the what strength training does for you, you know, on a personal level, on an emotional level, on a mental health, confidence level, all of that sort of stuff. So that's absolutely brilliant. So Sally, if people want to find out more about Strength Ambassadors, obviously you are based in East London, aren't you? Like you said, just near West Ham. What's the best way for people to follow you on social media or get in touch? I mean, where are you most active?
Active on Instagram, and I do make an effort to post, you know, tips and advice and stuff that's actually useful. So it's not just, hey, come to our gym. You know, so we are at Strength Ambassadors on Instagram. So yeah, go and have a look and you'll get a feel for the gym, but also you might find some useful videos, and if you, especially if you haven't done a lot of barbell training before, I've got some good kind of entry level tips and advice on, you know, like I just posted one yesterday on like how to fail a back squat safely, and you know, stuff like that. So check us out there. But if you did want to come down and try a class, then strengthambassadors.com is the website to find out more about the gym itself.
Yeah, and like I say, I've personally been to Strength Ambassadors a couple of times. Once just a couple of weeks ago, and I highly recommend. It's a fantastic facility, easy to get to. You know, with all the Chelmsford, with all the London transport links. You know, easy to get to from Chelmsford. I drove there, so it's easy for me to get there as well. It's about a 40-minute drive, but yeah, no,
Not so easy from Cornwall.
not so easy from Cornwall or from Bath. Yeah. But no, I do highly recommend it. That's been lovely, really, really lovely. Thank you so much for joining us, Sally. That's
Thank
great.
you. I've loved it. Thank you very much.
Excellent. And yeah, we've got a couple of episodes coming up. We are continuing with our run of fantastic female guests. Next week, episode 249, we have Dr. Nancy Allen on, who is a menopause doctor specialist, coming on with us next week. And then for episode 250, we have the return of Dan John for his 11th appearance on the Health Oddity podcast, episode 250 there. And we're going to have loads more guests lined up. And if you are, you know, if you happen to be around Bath or the Southwest, what weekend is it we're doing the walks, Pete? The we don't want to just an open invitation.
The
20th and the 21st, 20th
Yeah.
and the 21st of June. Unique Results are on tour. We are going down to Bath to meet Pete, and we're going to do a walking weekend down there. And I think you said Elise Ball, former guest on the show, is going to come down.
Elise is coming along, and I've got a couple of people who got in touch with me, who I'm going to message and invite along as well. So Helen will be one of them, and somebody else who I can't remember her name.
No, that's fantastic. Excellent. Brilliant. Thank you so much, guys, for listening. Please do like, share, subscribe, leave a review if you're watching or listening on a platform that allows you to do so, especially Apple Podcasts. Give us a subscribe or a follow on YouTube. And we will see you next week for episode 249 with Dr. Nancy Allen. Thank you so much, Sally.
Thank you, guys. Great to be here.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Peter Lance.
You're welcome.
And we will see you next week for episode 249. Until then, bye-bye.